Okay, so our second session is about the future of food's protein. And our second guest is Dror Tamir from Hargol FoodTech, Israel. Hi, Dror, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well, thank you. So I guess anybody just looking at your profile picture might have an idea of what your company is working on, but can you just please share a few words about that?
Absolutely. Hargol is about delivering protein, an alternative protein that is healthier for the environment, that is healthier for humans and animals, and that is safer and more efficient to produce. And that protein is actually grasshopper protein, because grasshoppers are an amazing animal that provide a wide range of benefits to both the humans and the environment, from a superior nutritional content all the way to a wide range of health benefits that they provide. And one more exciting fact about the grasshoppers is that this is the most widely eaten insect in the world. So 1 billion people across the world consume them today as part of their diet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you might have answered my next question, which I think is a pretty obvious one, that can you imagine that at some point in the future that 1 billion will become 6 or 7 billion?
Actually, this is not an easy question, because most of the world is not really used to eating insects in general, or grasshoppers in particular, which means the yak factor is one of the greatest challenges for this new edible insect industry. However, there are some ways making this process a little bit easier. Just as an example, in the 1980s, eating raw fish in North America or Europe was not something that was acceptable, but today everyone eats sushi. So bringing the sushi into a food product and enjoying it changed the perception, and now everyone's eating them. So just taking the grasshoppers, milling them into a fine powder that contains 72% protein, providing all these health benefits, is the first way to overcome that barrier. Beside that, we are all becoming more and more aware to the impact of what we do and what we eat on the environment, on our health, and we are seeking those better alternatives. We know that eating a steak is great, but it hurts the environment. And if we expect the global population to grow and the global demand for protein to double over the coming decades, we really have to change the way we behave.
Mm-hmm. Before the session, we just had a quick chat, and you told me that I shouldn't be afraid of asking some tricky questions, so here's one. So I know that the world's population, some of those are very, very strictly following rules of their religion. So is grasshopper is in line with those rules in certain religions? Is there a problem there?
Actually, this is one of the easiest questions out there, because if you read the Bible, grasshoppers are the only insect that is approved as kosher. Just open Leviticus and you can read it. You can also open the Quran, because Muhammad the Prophet used to eat grasshoppers as well. So it is also halal for Muslims. And you can even go to the New Testament, because John the Baptist, his food was grasshoppers with honey. So for all three religions, grasshoppers are the perfect food, a survival food, a biblical food, and it's great.
So again, you might have answered my last question again, because I just wanted to ask you why grasshoppers and why not other popular insects, for instance, black soldier flies?
Oh, that's a very important question. There are a few differences between grasshoppers and other insects that are being farmed today around the world. We can find black soldier fly and mealworms and crickets. Those animals eat almost any organic matter, which means they can eat organic waste. So the risk of contamination is very high. The flavors and the taste of those insects is very distinct, and the nutritional content is not as good as it could be. They contain a lot of fat and saturated fat and cholesterol. Grasshoppers, on the other hand, are picky eaters. These guys eat only fresh grass with no pesticides, no fertilizers, so it's a very safe and a healthy product to start with. Second, they provide a superior nutritional content with over 70% protein and less than 10% fat, half of it are the omegas, omega-3 and omega-6, so it's a very healthy product. And the last part, because of their diet, grasshoppers are almost neutral in taste and flavor. So as an ingredient, you will not be able to tell that you have grasshoppers in your food. With crickets and others, unfortunately, you will be able to tell they are there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you mentioned that these grasshoppers they only eat fresh grass. So I believe you have to produce their food as well. So how do you do this in practice? So do you have like a farm where you grow grass for the grasshoppers?
Absolutely. In order to feed the grasshoppers year round, you have to be able to produce the grass year round at the same quality, which is not an easy thing. So we grow the grass for the grasshoppers indoors. We developed vertical farming of wheatgrass and very short cycles, and we provide fresh grass on a daily basis to our grasshoppers, 365 days a year. Now, this is a very expensive operation. And for us, the future is actually in an alternative feed. We checked a lot of alternatives, and I can tell you that we reached a proof of concept. We just finished the 5th generation of grasshoppers that are fed by only dry feed, which means we found a way to teach the grasshoppers to eat only dry feed. We taught them, instead of receiving all the water from the grass, to drink from an outer source, which was a very tricky challenge. And we are actually developing a new genetic line of grasshoppers that can feed on dry grass. Now, to explain the impact on our operation, the cost of the dry feed is 3% of the cost of the fresh grass. And in terms of labor, it reduces manpower by over 50%. We expect to implement the dry feed in our commercial farms, which you can see in the back, one of them, in 2022, and this will make us much more efficient than any other insect producer, and actually more efficient than any other animal protein producer in the world, very close to plant-based protein cost.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So, but how do you do this? Did you do some like grasshopper breeding? So did you select those that actually liked the dry grass? So how did you do this? How could you develop this 5th generation?
It's actually the same as we did with breeding the grasshoppers. We provided them a lot of good wine and music, and eventually it happened. But the real thing is, we tested tens of varieties of feed until we found what they are reacting to. We have a CTO that for over 30 years has been growing and breeding insects. This guy, we call him the insect whisperer, and he can understand what the insects are saying, if they feel good or not. On a daily basis, I receive reports if the grasshoppers are happy or not. And eventually, he found a way to provide them feed that is dry. And he also found a way, because he was looking at them, he learned how you can actually serve them the water and have them drinking water from an outer source. That's pretty amazing to watch. It's unbelievable seeing grasshoppers going to water and drinking them, which they don't do in the wild like that.
Wow.
And it's a matter of looking, listening to the animals, trying a wide range of possibilities, and eventually you also need a lot of luck.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it might be obvious for our audience, but just to double check and to confirm, so you produce these grasshoppers for human consumption and not like animal feed like with the black soldier flies?
Absolutely. Let's start with the economics of the two. When you produce black soldier fly and you want to replace fish feed or poultry feed, you are competing with fish meal, and that price is about $1.50 per kilogram. Very low price, very challenging to produce an animal at that cost. When you are producing grasshoppers as human food, you have existing markets across Africa, Asia, Middle East, Central America. Let's take Saudi Arabia as an example. This is a market that eats a lot of grasshoppers. They consider grasshoppers as a delicacy. They call it jarad. And the cost of grasshoppers in that market can reach $300 per kilogram. That's a little bit higher than $1.50 per kilogram. So we enjoy immediately from existing markets, no need to educate the market, no competition for 11 months a year, because today the supply is based on collection in the wild, which is limited to 4 weeks a year, and very high prices and margins for us. So we can make a profit from day one.
That sounds perfect. Okay, again, a tricky question. Let's assume I have a girlfriend who is vegan. But she's just on the edge, so she doesn't want to eat like regular animals that are cute, but grasshoppers maybe. So do you think grasshoppers can be maybe an alternative protein source for vegans?
Great question. Let's split it into two. First, it's your girlfriend, so just tell her, and we know that from the research we are doing, that grasshopper protein reduces body fat. And that will be the selling point for her. However, let's talk about vegans in general. And they need to open their eyes, because vegans and vegetarians eat plants. And the farmers, in order to grow the plants, have to use pesticides and fertilizers to kill the insects that come to eat the same plants. These insects die in a nasty way, being wasted. No one is using that natural resource. And at the same time, they contaminate the soil and the water sources. If you look at our grasshopper farming, we're not using pesticides and fertilizers. We are using 100% of the animal. Everything is edible. Nothing goes to waste. And even the way we harvest the grasshoppers at the end is done in a humane way. We reduce the temperature in our facility. They fall asleep, and only then we collect them and freeze them. So there is no stress in the process. And this is actually following the recommendations of the European Union, minimal harm done to animals. So it's more humane than plant-based protein.
So you mentioned that eating grasshoppers may help in burning fat. So how does this work, and why does this work?
It's not actually burning fat. The impact is from two reasons. It's mainly the molecules, the chitin molecules that are in grasshoppers, but also in other insects as well. But grasshoppers taste better. First, they act as natural fibers, so it slows your digestion. You feel full for longer. And the second part, the chitin molecules interact with the fat molecules and extract them from your body.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you might know that this session is actually has a Q&A part, so let's jump into that. So I'm just going to read two questions from the audience. The first one is, it says, lots of people still are aware of eating products made of insects. So what do you think could help change their mind?
This is the trickiest part of the insect industry. I think that as the world is becoming more and more global, people are more and more aware to habits and customs in other countries. So if you go to Japan, you can eat a sushi called inago that contains insects. If you go to Uganda, you'll see, and during November, you'll be able to see that this is ensenene season. That's the local grasshopper that flies in billions, and they sell it everywhere, and everyone are eating them. If you go to Mexico in September, you'll be able to eat chapulines, local grasshopper, in your taco with chili and lime. So people are more and more aware. The second part, that would be probably chefs, leading chefs around the world, and also athletes that are looking into healthier and more efficient protein sources, and we are collaborating with them. They share their diet, showing how they eat the grasshoppers as a whole or as a shake. They share a lot of recipes based on the grasshoppers. And eventually, you educate the market and you change the perception. This is a long and painful process, and it will happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now that you mentioned chefs, the second question is just about this. So how do you think, what do you think, how will a dinner menu look like in 10 years?
Well, eventually we will still be eating chickens. We will still be eating pigs. We'll still be eating cows. That's part of our diet. They taste great. The texture is excellent. However, about 30% of the protein intake that we used to today will shift to new alternative protein sources. We will see more plant-based protein reaching our plates. We can see it already happening. We will see algae-based protein and even a little bit of cultured meat that you grow in a lab. And you will also see the insects, not as a whole on our plates, but we'll see them as an additive, as an ingredient in a wide range of food and beverage applications.
Okay. And would you, I know that you regularly eat grasshoppers, and I wasn't, but I haven't asked if you have a family. So do they also eat grasshoppers, if you have a family?
I'm proud to say that 100% of my family members ate grasshoppers, and this includes my wife. She was brave enough to eat them on the Israeli TV live, and includes two sons, 10 and 8 years old. One of them, the youngest one, since he was 3, has been given grasshoppers. He's the perfect presenter. And I'm also proud to say that my 1.5-year-old daughter already ate grasshoppers, not as a whole, but as in the form of a sausage made of grasshopper protein.
Great. Okay, so we have an audience of full of youngsters, so they might wonder, how did you end up starting this business? So when was the first time when you realized that, okay, grasshoppers is the thing, so, and I should really produce grasshoppers?
Well, the immediate answer to that is, well, I'm an accountant, and only accountants can come up with such crazy ideas. But the real answer is that I was born in a kibbutz in Israel. My grandfather was the chairman of the kibbutz. He established 2 food companies, Galam, the largest corn processor in Israel, and Ambar, the largest feed producer in Israel. And my grandmother was the cook of the kibbutz. So food, nutrition, industry, and agriculture are in my veins. One of the stories my grandparents used to tell me as a young kid at the kibbutz was about the 1950s. At that point of time, Israel suffered from food security issues, and at the same time suffered from locust swarms, locusts are grasshoppers, flying in from Africa and destroying the crops. The kibbutz members used to run to the fields to make a lot of noise and scare the grasshoppers away. And at the same time, they saw other Jews, Yemenite Jews, coming to the same fields and collecting tons of grasshoppers to eat. So from that story, as a very young boy, I learned that grasshoppers are food for many around the world and that they are kosher. Fast forwarding over 35 years into the future, I'm a serial entrepreneur for food and nutrition. I'm learning about the protein challenge around the world, and immediately I knew that grasshoppers are the perfect solution.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so perhaps a last question. So you said that in the future you expect the grasshopper consumption to go up. So when do you think this will happen? So let's say in Europe, when do you think it will have a tangible impact on the food consumption?
I think this mainly depends not only on the startups that are penetrating this new arena, it mainly depends on the traditional large food producers. And I can tell you that all of them are looking into the insect potential. Just to share with you a few names, IKEA, we all know IKEA, that's the largest food exporter of Sweden. They announced 2 years ago that they are going to be more sustainable, and one of the most unsustainable products they sell on the stores are the meatballs made of beef. So 2 years ago, they announced that they will replace the meatballs from beef to insects. And we are discussing with them, we already have a prototype for them.
Wow.
So that's an example, because once they make a decision, try to imagine how big the impact is. And same goes to many other food producers, European and American food producers that are looking and are exploring. Many of them have pilots with us.
Mm-hmm. So it can easily happen in a couple of years' time, or maybe next year, I will just go into IKEA and I will have my meatballs and they will tell me that it's made of grasshoppers. Do you still want to take it?
Exactly. And instead of calling them Swedish meatballs, they will call them Swedish Israeli grasshoppers.
Okay, amazing. Okay, thank you very much, Dror. It was a real pleasure talking to you, and wish you all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you very much.